Welcome to this episode of For the Love of Theatre podcast, which aims to bring the South Australian community theatre scene to you. My name is Mark Wickett and I'll be your host. The intention of this podcast is to celebrate our quality community theatre productions with their casts, crews and creatives to develop our connection between all the theatre groups in South Australia, their audiences and you, our listeners. In future episodes, we will be talking with other companies about their productions and with other guest hosts. If this sounds like something you would want to be a part of, then please let us know by emailing us at fortheloveoftheatrepodcast@gmail.com. Actress Shelley Winters is perhaps best known for her Academy Award-winning work on the screen, but she also loved the theatre. And she once said, "Every now and then, when you're on stage, you hear the best sound a player can hear. It's a sound you can't get in movies or in television. It is the sound of a wonderful, deep silence. That means you have hit them where they live." For this episode, I'm at the University of Adelaide Theatre Guild, who are rehearsing for their production of the Penelopiad by Margaret Atwood. I'm here with its director, Kristin Telfer. Kristin, what's it about?
The Penelopiad is a lyrical and haunting interpretation of Homer's classic The Odyssey, but instead of focusing on Odysseus and his rather winding journey back home after the sacking of Troy, it focuses on his wife Penelope and the years she spent waiting for him at home and fending off the predatory suitors with an eye on claiming her and her wealth in the absence of her husband. In the play, Penelope tells the audience the story of her life from the afterlife, but she herself is haunted by ghosts and memories, who are the shades of her maidservants, who are sort of a Greek chorus constantly reminding her that even in the very patriarchal, restrictive ancient Greek society, she still was more privileged than they were, and actually has some of the burden of responsibility in the fates they met, first at the hands of the suitors and then at the hands of her vengeful returning husband and her teenage son.
And why did you choose this play?
The Penelopiad is by Margaret Atwood, who is one of my favourite authors, and I read it when it first came out in 2005. It came out originally as a book, as part of a series of modern authors retelling old classical stories, and I didn't even know that she adapted it into a play until a few years ago, and I was waiting for someone to do it in Adelaide, but it never happened, and it's just always, since I discovered it, it's always been one of those plays that I just thought, oh, I would absolutely love to do this, and I am extremely honoured and grateful that I've been given the opportunity by the Theatre Guild.
And how have you gone about creating the world of this play?
The script sometimes gives a lot to evoke the idea of what Atwood wanted to be presented visually on stage, and sometimes gives very little. So I came in with a clear vision of the overall body of the piece, but there were, during the rehearsal period, because it's had to be very collaborative due to the nature of the show being such a strong ensemble piece, that people have contributed their own ideas. There's little character moments and subtleties in the text that we're constantly discovering even just a few weeks out from performance and production week. And a very important part of our production is the music composed by Kristin Stefanoff, because in the play there are songs with verse by Margaret Atwood, but they don't provide the music for them. So I knew when I was given permission to do this production, I would need to find a composer. And fortunately, when I reached out to her, Kristin was interested and available, and she's written some beautiful, beautiful melodies for this piece.
You talked about Kristin there. How do you choose your collaborators that you work with on your productions?
Shannon Norfolk, who is our production designer, we've been friends for ages and we've done lots of other things together. So fortunately, when I went to further talk about my application with the Theatre Guild, and they asked, who do you have to work with? I said, well, Shannon and I are kind of a package deal, if that's okay. And she's doing some great things in terms of costume and set for the show. There's obviously Kristin, and Stephen Dean will be doing our lighting design, and obviously he's great, so I'm excited that he was available and happy to work on the show.
So how do you audition your cast?
The Penelopiad is a extremely ensemble focused show. It's not the kind of thing where there are three principals and then the maids is just kind of background dressing. And I had to make it very important in the audition notice that stress that if you are auditioning to be a maid, it'll be a lot of hard work. You will be on stage the entire time. You will have lots to say and do, including playing sort of multiple characters, because the concept of the piece is that as well as playing themselves as kind of a Greek chorus, the maids play all the characters in the story who Penelope interacts with apart from her husband and her son. So soldiers, other servants, courtiers, sailors, that kind of thing. And one of the maids also doubles as the infamous Helen of Troy. So I actually did group auditions for all the maid roles where we read some of the script and especially some of the verses, which, although they didn't have music yet, gave a good idea of the kind of lyricism of the dialogue and the words to see how well the actors were able to work with that. And we also did some what turned out to be very entertaining group improv exercises where I asked the groups of actors to perform scenarios such as being, a bunch of girls getting ready for a night out and then a bunch of men getting ready for a night out as well, because one of the challenges that the maids have is that lots of them also have to play a group of very rowdy, unpleasant portrayals of toxic masculinity at its worst. And so I needed to be able to see that the actors had the confidence to be able to do that kind of thing.
What would you say is your directing style?
I like to think I'm fairly chill in my directing. Basically, as a director, I feel that my job is to be ultimately responsible for the experience that the audience have in the theatre watching the show, which means that if any kind of question or doubt over any kind of performance choice or visual aesthetic thing gets asked, the onus is not on the performer or anybody in the production team to say that was them. They should be able to look to me and say, oh, what did Kristin think was meant to be being sort of put across to the audience, and for me to be able to have an answer to that. Obviously, whether or not the audience thinks that's a good answer is up for debate, but my job is to make everyone's work look as great as it can and to show everyone off to their best absolute ability. And in a show like this, it's been collaborative by nature because, like I said, it's an ensemble piece and everyone has a valid, and everyone's contributions are valid and have to be given equal respect.
How do you collaborate? What kind of techniques do you use to encourage that collaboration, particularly in rehearsal with your cast?
Right at the outset, when I was talking to the cast at our first read-through, I emphasised the fact that this is the kind of space where I want everyone to feel comfortable if they have ideas to speak up, say things like, oh, we've done this way, can we try it another way? Or I've had this idea for a character, can I try that? And yeah, basically that kind of thing, just always remaining very open to what everyone has to bring to the table, and this cast has brought a lot to the table.
The Penelopiad, written by Margaret Atwood, directed by Kristin Telfer, is at the Little Theatre at the University of Adelaide from Friday the 23rd of May until Sunday the 1st of June. Tickets are available at trybooking.com/CXJIL. I'm also joined today by 4 members of the cast of the Penelopiad.
I'm Jane, and my character is Penelope. I'm the faithful Penelope waiting for her husband to return after 20 years at war.
I'm Miriam, and I'm playing the maid Tanis and also King Laertes, Odysseus' father.
I'm Jessica. I'm playing a maid called Alecto and Helen of Troy.
I'm Heather. I'm playing a maid called Celandine and also Penelope's Naiad mother.
When you start a new show, how do you go about answering the question, who is my character?
That's quite a tricky one, isn't it? Because I tend to find that it's different depending on the story. I really like to get deep into the story and try and understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, what are the circumstances of it, of the narrative, I guess, and really try and get in those shoes and walk around in them for a little while. And I find that takes time.
Certainly, from my perspective, yeah, I agree with that, Jane. And thinking about Helen of Troy, she's prolific in the literature, but the way she's depicted in this show is unique. And so, yeah, really settling into the feeling, the tone of this show. What are we trying to convey? And this show adopts a unique voice, taking the perspective of Penelope and of the women, sort of reclaiming voice for folks who previously wouldn't have had that opportunity. And yet, Helen is still portrayed through the eyes of Penelope, which are not always favorable. Still not her own voice, but perhaps closer to it, in that we're hearing from a woman's perspective anyhow.
And I think that's the beautiful thing about this show is that, I mean, it's the retelling from such a perspective as and maids are only mentioned in one line of the original text. So to, give a perspective of the years waited for Odysseus and what that entailed.
I also think, especially with the maids, because even though they have such a major role, most of the maids only have a handful of lines. And so you really have to build that character from the ground up at some point. And I think what I like to do with smaller characters like that is I give them a driving force. For my maid Tanis specifically, I've given her a driving force of wanting to be loved and accepted because she never had parents, being raised as a maid. And I think you'll really be able to see that in this play. Everyone's maids are so different despite having such small amounts of lines, which I think is really cool.
I remember a rehearsal where we talked about how we were playing our maids and talking about, the mixture coming together of our group. And after that, I felt inspired to go Google the meaning of my maid's name. And so Alecto actually means unceasing anger or implacable anger in ancient Greek. And so I was like, right, so that's a cool character direction.
Even with the suitors, most of the suitors don't have any lines at all, and yet everyone's suitors are so different. It's really cool. I actually enjoy seeing everyone's, the way they hold their bodies, the way they walk, the way they move their arms. Everyone's got such a different vision in mind, which is really impressive.
You have crafted distinct characters, yet in ancient Greek theatre, the chorus was a group of performers who provided commentary on the play and its themes, speaking, singing, moving in unison. Are the maids also the Greek chorus in the Penelopiad?
Yeah, and what's been done, direction-wise, is that even though in the script it's probably presented more as a chorus, it has been cut down for individual lines and individual inflections. And
it really is about the relationships that the women had that have been so glossed over in the real story, the Odyssey, Homer's Odyssey. And so without that ability to form those personal connections, we wouldn't see why their stories really mattered so much and why it was such a tragedy that it was reduced to one line in the Odyssey.
Has there been a moment when something happens in your preparation or learning your lines or in rehearsal where the character is just suddenly so clearly defined, you suddenly know this is who that person is? Or has it been more of an evolution of character over time?
For me personally, with Penelope's mother, I've kind of taken a little bit of a lead as well from you, Jane, as far as seeing how you have developed Penelope, and then seeing a sort of reflection, excuse the water pun, in where she has this tempo, and so coming from her mother, who, when her mother speaks to her, is calm water, and giving her wisdom.
I love the way you're using inflection in your portrayal of the mother, your tone and your pace. The vocal attribute is really perfect for that role.
Smooth and flowy, which is exactly what you want to go for.
Oh, gee, thanks, guys. Oh, nice.
And even at the last rehearsal, is it Shannon, our costume designer, brought in some pieces to play with, and she brought in a little bit of what she's thinking about for your costume and for mine. And that even seemed to inform some choices. My costume for Helen is hot pink, and I thought, right, got it. Okay, I need to amp up Helen a notch. This is hot pink.
So it sounds like you're working really, really well together.
I think we are working all really well together because there's been a well-established context of safety. So in this play, there is a theme of rape, and that's been taken quite seriously, so that when we have done those rehearsals, when we've done that blocking, that singing, and so on, our director, Kristin, has been really explicit about, touch, and checking that everyone's okay. How's everyone feeling afterwards? I felt like it's been undertaken with great care and consideration, not in any way dismissed or treated lightly. And so I think with that foundation, I think people feel quite supported in important ways, which enable us to work well and collaborate well together.
This is the play with songs. How's the singing going?
This is not a musical, right? This is, in our auditions, I guess we did a little bit of singing, but that wasn't the focus. And so I think it's music as a medium for storytelling.
The singing, can I say, because I don't actually do any singing, but
yes,
it is
you do.
amazing, and they sound absolutely beautiful. And the music that is an original score, Kristin Stefanoff, she has created this beautiful music that just sort of percolates, or it's sort of like a perfume.
So what has been your favourite part of the rehearsal process so far?
Sword fighting has been cool. Never done that before. Can't wait to do it again. We've got Jethro helping us out, learning how to do some probably very basic moves, but I feel very cool, and I'm certainly trying to impress my 8-year-old with my sword fighting, I have to say that.
I've been working with Fred, who is playing Telemachus, and we have a point where we have a somewhat intense fight, and we've been really making it so fun and creative, obviously using just kind of the basic moves, but adding in punches and headbutts, and at one point I sweep under his legs to try and knock him over and stuff. It's all just about having fun, honestly, and then it ends up looking good when you're having fun.
I love Olivia's warm-ups. We start with a fabulous warm-up, and we're on the floor, we're leaping about, we're making lots of weird noises, and it's sort of it's amazing how that forms connections with people, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's almost like we're putting our weirdest, most embarrassing front forward. Some of those singing ones, we just basically are singing, screaming, and everyone's voices are breaking all over the place and stuff. And it feels encouraging to know that no one's going to be judging you for being a bit weird, because we're all being weird,
Yeah.
It's a shared endeavor.
And I think it's just, even from day one, it was just very obvious that we're just all here for the same thing and the same goal, and to also enjoy ourselves and to learn something from this. And I have to say, as a performer, I'm also still learning so much from these rehearsals.
Why is community theatre so important to you?
Because something like community theatre, anyone from any path of life, any level of training, any background can do, and they can go and they can enjoy it and they can smash it and they can meet new friends.
Yeah, it is the accessibility both for performers, for artists, like whether it be also backstage and costume, and then for the accessibility for audiences as well.
There are all these talented people pursuing their dreams, telling amazing stories, forming connections, and the audiences are usually full as well. It's not something that is kind of on the margins. It's popular.
Like, we practice 3 times a week, which is pretty impressive because they each go for 3 hours. And like, having every session, you'd be like, oh wow, that sounds like it'd get exhausting after a while. It's always been the highlight. Like, it doesn't feel like a chore, it doesn't feel like a task. It feels like you're going somewhere, you're engaging in your community, like you're engaging in things that are genuinely fun. So if it weren't for community theatre, I would never be able to engage in any form of theatre at all. So it's always been a very important part of my life.
We're coming together for this specific project. It has a specific emotional message. There are these component parts of different personalities, and we all get to play, and the kind of intermingling of these components creates this, magic which is constituted in this one space, shape, time. And how often do we get to play like this as adults in our lives?
I mean, physical theatre, you're coming out to watch something in person live, as opposed to I love movies a lot, don't get me wrong, but you've just got a movie on your phone or on the TV, you pause the movie when you get bored, you fast forward through some scenes, you rewind because you're like, oh, I wasn't paying attention, I was on my phone. You can't do that with physical theatre. It's there and you have to sit down and commit. And so coming out to a physical theatre and being like, you've paid to be here, you're here to watch people that you might know, a lot of people visit the friends and family, people who've put in so much effort, and it's a whole different feeling, honestly, than anything on a screen ever could be, I think.
There's this beautiful earnestness in it, right? The effort that everyone's coming together. No one's being too cool. Everyone is actually carving out, as you say, 9 hours a week minimum to do something just for love, just for passion, not getting paid. We're in our capitalist world, we commodify every hobby, right?
Yeah.
But this is unique. It's apart from that. We're doing it anyway, and nobody's too cool about it,
One of the things that's important to me is that we're all just doing this for fun and for the love of theatre.
I think as a performer, what is the most beautiful moment is when you can really sit and relish the silence, when you have a full audience and you know that everybody's so focused on the one thing, and it's just, that's one of those little magical moments.
The Penelopiad, written by Margaret Atwood, directed by Kristin Telfer, is at the Little Theatre at the University of Adelaide from Friday the 23rd of May until Sunday the 1st of June, including 4 matinee performances and 1 twilight performance with a Q&A with cast and creatives afterwards. Tickets are $28 full price or $23 for concessions and are available at trybooking.com/CXJIL. If you would like to volunteer for a local community theatre company, please reach out to us. Email fortheloveoftheatrepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. There are a myriad of roles including front of house, backstage crew, set building, costumes, lighting operators, sound operators, properties, creating various content for marketing, the list goes on. Theatre is for everybody, so we will help find the right fit for you. If you include in your email a description of your contact details, skill sets, interest, where you live and what times you're available, we will do our best to get you in amongst the fun. I'd also like to encourage every listener today to become a member of TASA, the Theatre Association of South Australia. It's free to subscribe, and you will receive a monthly edition of Encore, an online magazine, and emails where you'll discover what's on company events, and auditions. You can also access their latest reviews across community theatre companies in this wonderful state of ours. For more information, head to tazaonline.org.au. Thank you to all the members of the cast and crew of the Penelopiad for giving up their time to talk to me, and thank you, dear listener, for joining me today. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes, please contact us. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button on your favourite podcast platform and leave us a review. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of For the Love of Theatre podcast. Until next time.